Good afternoon. Thank you for being here. My name is Giti Javidi. I'm a previous professor of computer science from Virginia State University and now an associate professor of information technology and cybersecurity at University of South Florida. I asked if I could talk about dark web and deep web. That's something that I'm very passionate about. My area of research is in fog, edge, and cloud computing, and this area of dark web falls really well into that area. So I thought I would share some of the things that I have learned. This is not a very technical presentation. It's just something that I wanted to share with you because I wasn't sure if the people who are in the room have any cybersecurity or information security background. So I thought this would be a good learning experience for all of us. So the outline of my talk is that I'm going to tell you what the focus of my talk is. I'm going to give you some introduction. We are going to talk about the anatomy of internet. I'm going to talk to you about the difference between surface, deep, and dark web. I think what you would find interesting is to know how dark web actually works, and also what are the legal and illegal activities that are happening in dark web, the impact that it is having in cybersecurity. As you know, cybersecurity is going to have huge impact on our economy in not only nationally but internationally. So it's going to have it is having a global impact. I'm going to talk about some of the policies for regulation of dark web, but I also want to talk to you about GDPR. I don't know how many of you have been reading about it and you know what impact that is going to have. I'm going to make some recommendations and takeaway. This is actually a 1-hour presentation. I thought I have 1 hour to talk about these things, so I'm going to go fast. I may not finish the talk, but I would love to talk to you afterwards if you have any questions. I'm going to dive into, so basically in this talk we are going to dive deeper into the web, and that's where we are going to go into dark web, which is actually 90% of the web. So what we see on the surface is not really what is happening in another 90% of the activities that are happening. So I will discuss the aspect of deep and dark web and their operation and usage, and I'm also going to kind of outline the differences, and because we tend to interchangeably use deep and dark web, and sometimes even call it internet, where in fact what we use is really 4% of internet. The World Wide Web is more vast than we think. Internet is huge, but the majority of us see only a surface of it. That's what we call surface web. In fact, when someone says that Google or other search engines know about everything on the internet, they're making a complete mistake, because actually they don't. According to statistics, and because I thought I can share this presentation, I thought you can just click on that. That's why I created a hyperlink, so that you can go. Search engines have indexed at least 5.62 billion pages just in the last 3 months. The part of the internet indexed by Google and other search engines is used as visible web or surface web, and that is something that we see and we work with every day. But it is really less than 10%. In reality, it's only actually 4% of the internet that we have access to, and we can see those activities. So we have visible internet, we have invisible internet, which is really deep and dark web. We have average users, obviously, that's us. We have cyber criminals, that hopefully is not us. So even if we hack, we are ethical hackers. We are not doing any damage. And also, obviously, I'm going to talk about potential. But deep web actually comprises of 93% of the internet. So when you talk about web, when we talk about internet in general, this is what you're talking about. We see things in surface. We call that surface web. That's a portion of the World Wide Web that are indexed actually by search engines. Remember I said 5.26 million pages were indexed. That's just on the surface. And therefore, it kind of makes majority of internet that most of us use on daily basis. Then under that, we have deep web. Deep web is a portion of the web that we can access through the browser, but it is not indexed by Google or other search engines. And then within the deep web, and I tell you that some of us have been actually going into deep web. I don't know if you watch illegal movies. The movies come up in theater and you just go watch it, find a website and watch it. You're not in the web anymore. You're not in the surface anymore. You're actually on the deep web. Okay, and I'm going to talk about that in a few minutes. And then we have the dark web, which is a subset of deep web, and that's where we call it darknet services. And those sites that are only accessible when using darknet networks. They're also called hidden services. And darknet services are not, we have also darknets that are not on the dark web. For example, email, chat, file sharing. When you do those things, you're actually in the deep web. But in order to get into dark web, you have to have some kind of an access, you have to have user ID and password, there has to be a way for you to be able to get into dark web. Most of the illegal activities, actually all of them are happening in dark web. So again, when we talk about surface web, you're talking about only 4% of internet. That's where you have Google, Bing, Wikipedia, those are the things that we use every day, right? When we talk about deep web, that's actually 9% of the internet use. And those are academic information, medical records, legal documents, scientific reports, multilingual databases, financial reports, government resources, organization-specific repositories. When we talk about dark web, which is only 6%, you're talking about illegal information. You're talking about Tor encrypted sites. I'm going to talk about that in a few minutes. We are talking about political protests. We are talking about things, political discussions that are illegal in other countries. They're forbidden, but people can actually go inside the dark web and they can start talking about those political issues. Private communication, and also the huge thing on dark web is human and drug trafficking. That is happening in dark web. But again, that's 6%, but that 6% has a power to really do a lot of damage when it comes to the cybersecurity. Dark web is a specific, as I said, portion of the deep web that Google cannot find. Really, in a sense, nobody can find, except, of course, organizations that have hackers, that can go into those systems. There are a few distinguished characteristics that a site must meet to be considered dark web. So a website must only be able to be accessed anonymously through a service called, such as Tor, and cannot be accessed through the surface web. So you can just go into dark web as you wish. So if a website, you can only get into it anonymously, and also you can't really easily access it within dark web. The site must require a user to input its unique Tor address if you're using Tor to get into it. Some dark websites have an additional layer of security and may not require, and may actually require for you to input a password. Okay, so it means you want to buy drugs, it's illegal, but you can buy it through dark web. You have to, probably there is another layer for you to be able to get in and purchase those drugs or even sell drugs. So the software, what software do they use? Originally developed by Naval Research Laboratory, obviously NRL, at the turn of 21st century with the aim of providing, so initially what happened that dark web was created for, to make personnel at US military anonymous. And they could engage in operations abroad. So it was at that time that this terminology of let's go dark, and I'm sure you've heard that. I mean, we use that very, sometimes in our meetings. We say, okay, we are not going to have this committee anymore. We are going to go dark for a while, and then we reconvene at some point. We are going to, have these meetings again. So going dark is really, what that meant was the internet behind the internet, when we said, let's go dark. But it really started with a good intention for military. This system effectively makes it difficult to determine the IP address that originally requested a site. Okay, that's what makes it anonymous. And to ensure the anonymity of military users, the NRL deployed it in October of 2003 as a free to the public open source browser. This meant that the military traffic was hidden anonymously in a crowd of anonymous civilian users. Okay? Which is interesting. So again, the internet behind, so when you think about dark web, think about internet behind internet, and the intention was probably good with military. So as I mentioned to you, one of the ways to get into dark web is Tor, T-O-R. How many of you have used it? Why do we use it? We are good users. We are the good ones, right? But Tor, what do you use Tor for?
Well, I'm a cybersecurity professional. So
exactly. So it is used for cybersecurity by cybersecurity professionals.
I have to understand my name.
Exactly. And you're using it? Yeah. And I use it. I shouldn't. But once in a while, I hear my students saying, have you watched this movie? And I'm like, where? And they give me an email, that a site that is actually Tor. It has T-O-R in it. But we are good users. It's okay. Everybody uses it, right? But when you go deep using that Tor, that's when it becomes kind of dangerous. So Tor, this is how Tor works. So basically, you have different servers. You have different locations, right? And I use my name and my colleague's name. So here is how it works. Giti's Tor client gets a list of Tor nodes from a directory server, which is, let's say, this server here. It gets a directory. It knows which actually computers, which stations actually serve T. I put T are the red links that are unencrypted, and green links are the ones that are encrypted. Okay, so for me, in order to get information from a server, it is encrypted. I get the links to the servers that have Tor that are unencrypted, obviously. Then what happens is that my Tor picks up a random destination server, okay? And from that random destination server, I get to where actually that movie website is being, can provide me to go into the movie, right? Or for whatever purposes I'm going to Tor. So that's how it works. And on the step 3, if my Tor client wants to visit another site at another time, then a second random path will be, picked. So that's how it works. But again, imagine that the green line is actually encrypted, okay? Which makes it actually obviously more secure for whoever is providing that service. Now, Tor, you've heard of, have you seen the .onion? Right? For example, I put a link here, dark New York Times page. New York Times actually has a dark page. It is in dark web. And if you click on it, you can't go into it. It has a .onion. Tor is, the logo for Tor, as you see, is an onion, because it's layer by layer. Right? You pick up each layer and you get to the middle of the onion. So if you click on that website, New York Times has a magazine which is actually on dark web. And it really talks about things that are controversial. And also, in some countries, it is banned. You know, some of these magazines are banned for people to read, so they can actually go into dark web and they can go to these sites and read, those magazines. Okay? So an example is this. This page is accessible only through the Tor browser. Such an approach provides a certain level of anonymity. So when I go into dark web, and if I want to go read that magazine, my IP address is not revealed, my identity is not revealed. Okay, which makes it very secure in different countries. And there are other platforms that are I2P, Invisible Internet Project, and Freenet, and among others. But Tor seems to be the most popular one. What are some of the legal activities that are happening? Journalists, activists, campaigners in US, Europe, China, Iran, Syria rely on Tor to maintain the privacy of their communications and avoid any issues from the government. Also, sites are set up specifically for journalists to share files and stories in dark web. And these sites serve as an important pipeline that reporters can use to smuggle out important stories that portray different regimes in the negative light. Also, you can have, in dark web, you can securely share images that, offer ordinary citizen an additional layer of privacy when using sensitive photos. So it's not necessarily bad. I mean, dark web is not necessarily bad, but I'm going to talk to you about the fact that people are using it for illegal activities, carding sites, pornography, pharmaceutical, weapons, blogs, drugs, financial drugs, fake documentation services, cyber terrorism, human trafficking, whistleblowing, hacktivism. So it is used for different reasons. For example, I don't know if you had heard, I'm sure you had read about this Silk Road's takedown. This is a gentleman who, following the 2-year investigation leading to Silk Road's takedown in 2003, he was arrested. He's actually in prison. I think he's going to spend time in prison, I think 2 terms. Right, if he's born again, he's going to go to prison again. He actually was known as Dread Pirate Roberts, DPR. He was the founder and mastermind of illegal, drug activities. He basically, it was $1 billion black market. He was arrested. He was sentenced to 2 life sentences in May 2015, but there are other copycats right now. There is Agora, there is Silk Road 2, and Evolution. Another illegal activity is Chloe, she's a 20 years old British model. She's a mother of 1. She was kidnapped by notorious sex trafficking. This went huge because obviously she's a British model. She was captive for 6 days in a remote Italian farmhouse after being led to Milan by fake promises of photo shoot. And you know, this group called Black Death Group is a shadowy online group which have been linked to multiple instances of kidnapping and people trafficking. It is claimed that users of dark web actually pay to buy women who have been abducted across Europe. So, you know, I also heard something about human trafficking, where now people are actually using Uber to do that. If you want me to, I can tell you 2 stories about that. So it's interesting. So it is a safe haven for crime, okay? And you can find anything on dark web: social security numbers, spouse and children's name, party affiliation, income, voting history, home address. Any information that you want, you can find it in dark web. Recently, 146.6 million United States citizen information was stolen through Equifax breach. So you can assume that there is a 50% chance that your social security number, at a minimum, is currently for sale on dark web. So getting struck by lightning, 1 to 960,000. Dating a millionaire, 1 in 220. Experiencing a data breach, 1 in 4. Okay, so each one of us have to be very careful. How does that impact cybersecurity? This is one possibility to trade intelligence in dark web. There is a huge possibility for cybersecurity. The number of successful cyber attacks continues to grow. Globally, almost 1.9 billion data breach, and you know, I want to move on because it's a long presentation. It is going to impact cybersecurity in a huge way. It is already impacting it. So again, I'm not going to go through this, but if you like, I can share this presentation with you. One of them is the ransomware, right? I mean, you already know about that how that is going to work. Hackers can easily distribute ransomware packages. It's very easy. All it takes is a software and your willingness to do it, and you can collect ransomware, and you know, you don't even have to be a technical person to do this. Anybody can do it. They've made it so easy for everyone to do it. Also, a triangulation of exposed information, the data hack of adultery site. For example, you heard of Ashley Madison, right? The site for dating. It was more than dating, really. It was an adultery site. But a lot of names came out, but that is dark web. That was, it was anonymous, it wasn't supposed to be revealed, but it actually created a lot of problem for blackmailing and also obviously issues for individuals. There is another concept I wanted to talk about, which is a credential stuffing. Okay, and I'm going to. An example would be someone grabs 164 million record LinkedIn data dump that turned up last year and cracked the hashes. In no time at all, you have tens of millions of email addresses and plain text password pairs. And this is where the real problem begins, right? When your password, your information, your emails have actually been shared. So what we mean by credential stuffing is the automated injection of breached username password pairs in order to gain access to user accounts. This is a subset of brute force attack category. Basically, large numbers of spilled credentials are automatically entered into websites until they are potentially matched to an existing account, which the attacker can then hijack your information. Okay? I give you guys 3 more minutes, so I'm going to give myself 3 more minutes. This is interesting because your information is worth, how much do you think your information is worth on the internet? Really, when you put it all together, $1,200. It's not much. Okay, because they can, in dark web, they charge $1 for your social security number. They will charge $20 to $200 for online payment services login info, $5 to $110 for credit card information, $1 for general non-financial institution logins, $20 for loyalty account, driver license, $20, right? So when you put it all together, we are worth, each one of us, really $1,200 on the dark web. So, yes. So that's what it is. I mean, all of this information, they have prices for it. You know, this is how much it will cost you if you want social security number, emails, passwords. You know, ATM skimming devices will cost you $400. That's why they say be very, very careful when you go to those ATMs, right, to get cash. Or when you go, for example, to put gas in your car, those are the skimming devices that they can easily purchase and, you know. Now, also the dark web, there are some policies. Again, I wish I had more time to talk about this. But China has made efforts to block access to Tor. Russia has made efforts to, we have a gentleman here from Russia. This is not what I said. This is from online, you know, information papers that I have read, and also Austria. You know, so there are some issues with Tor, and every country is using some measures to basically protect their country, in a sense. And again, I can go on and on and on, but we don't have time. This is, again, my research. I'm very, very interested about it. Quickly, I have to tell you, how many of you have read about GDPR? Few of you. GDPR is General Data Protection Regulation. If you're from Europe, you should know about it. GDPR is basically, it was approved on May 28th of 2018, which puts regulations on data protections and if I'm not mistaken, it actually makes users the owners of the data, okay, which is going to have a huge impact on also all the other countries and also United States if you're doing any businesses with the European Union that involves anyone from Europe who lives in Europe. You're going to have to comply. So this compliance with GDPR is a huge thing. So imagine combining the issues that we have in dark web, that the data is out there, with GDPR is going to create a huge mess for the compliance. And the bad thing is that if you don't comply, how much is it? 2 to 4% of your profit that you have to pay as penalty? So again, GDPR is adding another layer of problem and challenges that we have already had. I had some recommendations for the issues. You know, I can talk to you about those and what I wanted you to take away from my presentation, but unfortunately we don't have time. But if you like, I can share this presentation with you, which I thought is a great learning experience for all of us. Here's my information, my phone number, here's my website, my CV, and information about my research, and I would love for you to get back to me. Yeah, I was, actually my presentation, I said, do not to dark web. It's not something that you sit at home and say, hey, let me go to dark web, see what's going on there, right? It's not a good idea. For somebody who is in cybersecurity information Credential Security. I think they have enough tools to know how to protect themselves when they go to web. Again, to some extent, we all do for illegal activities, but to get into websites that are not readily available. But for the rest of us, we don't want to go too deep into the dark web. And again, I would love to talk to you about that. Thank you so much. Thank you for your time. Appreciate it.